Welcome back to another episode of RNT Fitness Radio, and today I'm joined by Phil Graham, an established sports nutritionist, author, and business mentor for fitness professionals. We start the podcast talking about one of Phil's specialities, helping diabetics who want to build the healthiest, strongest, and best looking version of themselves through strength training, healthy eating, mindful living, and religious diabetes management. Phil's a type 1 diabetic, and his wife are entering the fitness industry all stem from his desire to control their diabetes and not let it hold him back. He went on to compete successfully in bodybuilding on an international level, and having helped thousands of diabetics achieve their goal, he wrote the book on it, called the Diabetic Muscle and Fitness Guide. As the episode evolves, we dive into mindset, the increasing rate of comparison syndrome, and why living by your own values is so critical. For anyone looking to go to the next level in their health, career, relationships, and life, you're going to enjoy this episode with Phil. So Phil, welcome to the podcast.
My man, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on, Akash.
I'm doing very well, thanks. How are you?
I am good, brother. I'm good. Long time no speak. I think the last time we spoke was in Tampa.
It was in a bar in Tampa.
That's right. Dude, I'm so glad to be on, and I can't wait to share some key insights with your audience on diabetes and everything else. So I will follow your lead, my man.
Awesome. So we might as well go straight into it and discuss your background, but not only in the industry, but your own sort of story personally as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 16, and it's important, I think, to get some context into the whole situation and how everything sort of occurred. When I was 16, I had no value on health and fitness, no value on nutrition, no real value on looking after myself. I was a typical overfed 16-year-old. And long story short, it all boils back to, and I've told this story many times, I got the bus into school every morning. We got the bus in at like 8 o'clock for 9 o'clock to be in by the bell. And you normally arrived in around about 25 past 8. And me and a handful of other guys on the bus always went to go and get breakfast in this little coffee shop. It was called the Scallop Shell, right? And we have in Ireland something that we call an Ulster fry. I think you guys have an English fry or an English breakfast.
Yeah, English fry.
Like that. So this is a little bit more calorific. It's got a little bit of extra bread and other bits and pieces, and yeah, it's a pretty tasty thing. So every morning without fail, we would go in there and get a cup of tea with it, loads of sugar in it and all that. And then we would go around to the shop before school and we would stock up on sweets and all this kind of stuff for the day. Do you remember the Wham bars? Do you ever remember those?
Yeah.
Wham bars, Highland toffee, all that kind of crazy stuff. And I mean, like, they were 10p a bar, so with Freddos and stuff. So we were like chopping like 60 grams of straight glucose after like a 2,000 calorie meal, and then into Freddos and all this kind of stuff, and with full sugar like Fanta. So, you know, there was a lot of calories and sugar going in. So I remember going in one day, and I just remember looking out the window and looking at car number plates, and they were just very blurry. My eyesight had just suddenly gone from clear to blurry. And I just picked that up and noticed it over the course of a couple of days. And I kept like trying to focus on these plates. I was like, why can I not read these plates when I could read them before? And long story short, I started to notice I started going to the toilet a lot. I started to have unexpected weight loss and just really didn't feel myself. I said to my mom about it, and she said it's probably an infection or a cold or something, that it pass. I did. Long story short, she booked me back into the GPs, went in, had a glucose intolerance test, and was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I was then marched down this like cold clinical corridor into this diabetes specialist room. And there was pictures of like amputated feet on the wall and diabetic neuropathy, and you're going to go blind, and this is going to happen to you, and that's going to happen to you. And long story short, I remember speaking to the diabetes specialist, and I just picked up on her language. It was very speculative in nature. It was very much, you could, you might, you possibly. And I remember picking up like 5 or 6 key insights. nutrition, exercise, physical activity, mindset, lifestyle, and then medication. So from that moment onwards, when I was told that I could potentially die younger, have kidney failure, all this and that, I then took an automatic value for health and fitness. And I bought pretty much every encyclopedia, every book, and started studying with the intent of equipping myself with the knowledge that I needed to make better choices and last longer in the world. So that then led into a love for training, a love for exercise. It then manifested itself into a love for bodybuilding. And throughout the course of that journey, I then took that inspiration more and went on to study clinical nutrition and biochemistry in university. And over the course of that, I was not only just trying to keep myself healthier for diabetes, but I then clicked into extreme bodybuilding. And bodybuilding for me was one of those areas that if I looked after my diabetes, my bodybuilding would be better. So it complemented the two. And I was using the inspiration of nutrition, training, lifestyle, exercise. I was learning about this as I was engrossed in that information, purely out of the fact that it was going to make me a better bodybuilder and allow me to last longer. So it really gave me accountability on a really nice level. With the bodybuilding, I had a very successful junior bodybuilding career, competed all over the world in various different shows, won various different shows, ranging from Mr. Northern Ireland to Junior Mr. Britain, Junior Mr. Universe, Junior Mr. World. I competed all over the world in these shows. And I was in flex, I was in muscle and fitness. And, the whole physique thing I was told I was never going to be able to achieve. I was never going to be able to do it. Diabetes would hold me back, this and that. And long story short, I just took control of that area of my life and empowered myself with the information and did what was not possible. And, I've had a very colorful and diverse career in the fitness industry, from personal training, starting online coaching pretty much before anyone else did it, to doing supplement formulations, to doing education, to now doing business stuff. And within the last 3 years, I wrote an encyclopedia on diabetic muscle and fitness. And the reason why I wrote it was because I was speaking, you know that I regularly speak at these exhibitions and stuff all over the place. And I remember coming off the stage at one point and there was a queue of people, and a large proportion were diabetic. And the last person who came off the stage said to me, "You really need to do something for us diabetics because we don't know what to do." So I'd spent all this time and knowledge and information, all this time and money and experimentation learning how to eat, how to train, how to build muscle. And I knew it was a very specific thing for like a young male or a young female or an athlete in terms of how to build a great diabetic body. And I just said to myself, you know what, I'm going to give back to the community, and I'm going to take everything that I know and I'm going to document it so that it's available as an evergreen piece for people to indulge and use and empower themselves with to build a better body. So the book was published. It was published all over the world, and it sold, it still sells copies every single day. I then diverged that into smaller ebooks and cookbooks and a membership lab, and with a big community. We created an online coaching platform where we had dietitians and stuff like that get involved and do the work. And, I take very little to do with it now. I dip in every now and again because obviously I'm so heavily involved in the whole fitness business side of things. But the masterpiece, which was the book, has been written and it's there. And, it's just there for people to learn and equip themselves with. So it's a fairly comprehensive read, but it's for the individual that wants to build serious muscle mass, serious strength, performance, massively improve their lifestyle. So, it's been a great success, and it's impacted a lot of lives. And that's been a big focus of mine. That's pretty much the story in a nutshell. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for diabetes. I wouldn't be in the fitness industry. I wouldn't know you if it wasn't for diabetes. So I've got a great sense of gratitude for diabetes because it gives me a sense of direction and purpose in my life from a point where I didn't have it. So it gave me an excuse to get up every day. The implementation of everything that I've done has led to here. So it's a different sort of angle from looking at the benefit of diabetes, if you like.
Yeah, amazing. Just so the listeners are clear, can you clarify what the difference is between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes?
Yeah, of course. I mean, when we look at diabetes, a lot of people are confused as to what diabetes is, and they often confuse the two. But just in a nutshell, diabetes is characterized by high blood sugar, and normal blood glucose levels are around between 3.9 to 5.5 millimoles per liter. If you live in the UK, if you're outside of the UK, it might be 70 to 100 milligrams per deciliter. And diabetes, as a general term, results due to the pancreas not producing enough insulin, or the cells of the body not producing or not responding properly to the insulin that's produced, so they're not as sensitive to it. Okay, a very famous Greek physician, really hard pronouncing his name, Aretas of Cappadocia, always described diabetes as intense thirst and melting down of the flesh and limbs. Now, the reason why they said that was because of the hormone insulin, which is obviously a key hormone that is involved in the transportation of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, minerals, fluid, all that kind of stuff into cells for utilization for fuel and storage. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy into the science of that, but when that is compromised, the body cannot use fuel properly. So what happens is it begins to become catabolic, it begins to eat itself, and it begins to break down. So if you can imagine normal blood flow, like Ribena going through your veins, or diabetes, which is like jam going through your veins, all this stuff isn't getting out of the blood, and it's not going to the necessary cells where it should be. So you end up getting articular sclerosis, you get inflammation, you get a ton of stuff that goes on inside the vessels of the body, and complications start to occur. There's massive increases in stress, oxidative stress, and just a ton of processes that are non-physiological, non-healthy, and they just deteriorate the well-being of the organism, the human, right? So we've got typically three types: type 1, type 2, and usually gestational. And in order to diagnose diabetes, I mean, it's really, there's a couple of fundamental tests. You've got an A1C blood test, which is average blood glucose over 6 months. And ideally that should be, below 6.5. If you're over 6.5, it indicates there's potential issues there. Fasting blood glucose in the morning, which should be around about 7 millimoles per liter. Or less. If it's over that, then it's indicating that there is potentially something wrong. And then a 2 hours post-glucose tolerance test, which is what I had. A specific amount of carbohydrates given, blood glucose is taken before and after, and we want to see the body's ability to metabolize that sugar and bring blood glucose back down again. So that is a very specific test, right? So type 1 diabetes, just in a nutshell, to keep this really concise and clear, is an autoimmune condition. That's whereby the body begins to basically destroy certain cells within the pancreas called beta cells. And normally it results in insulin production deteriorating over time to the point where it is non-existent or non-effective. And then as a result, blood glucose builds. In terms of causes, we've got genetic, there's lifestyle, there's still a lot of research going on behind it, but there's a lot of genetic factors in that. Type 2 diabetes is the more common one that most people deal with, which is associated with lifestyle problems, lack of exercise, too much stress, smoking, excess calories, and again, genetic factors, and also some exposure to certain pollutants and drugs. Okay, but there's always research going on as to other reasons why. And basically what happens is the body's cells become resistant to the insulin produced, and therefore over time the pancreas, which is producing insulin, has an excess burden on it. There's a lot of stress on it, and there's a continual production of insulin, and it's not doing its job as effectively. So therefore fuels cannot be metabolized as effectively and efficiently, and then we get the problems with hyperglycemia. Okay, gestational diabetes typically results within around about 24 to 28 weeks of being pregnant. And again, it's to do with changes in hormones and genetic factors and stuff like that. So those are the main three categories.
So type 2 is the one we most commonly associate with diabetes. That's the one we associate with bad lifestyle choices and what a lot of the population are at risk of developing. Whereas type 1, you're identifying as more of a genetic autoimmune condition, which there may not be much control over. And even if you're living a healthy lifestyle, it just takes that one trigger that you mentioned, with the meal you had, which then led to the blurring. It could be something as simple as that, which triggers it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go on underneath the thing. But if you're eating crap, not exercising, not sleeping, highly stressed, you've got a lot of factors going against you.
Yeah. And for the type 1 diabetics who may be listening, why is it such a difficult task in getting shape, improving your body composition when you're dealing with type 1 diabetes?
Well, first of all, we've got to realize two things. One, you're using an exogenous drug, insulin, which looks like this. This is an insulin pen, right? And long story short, when you're taking that, you have the potential to take too much. And when you take too much, you end up overeating. You take a hyperglycemia because the amount of insulin you've taken is out of proportion in relation to the amount of carbohydrate in your blood. So again, think insulin as a transporter hormone that's involved in transporting predominantly glucose into cells, into glycogen, or into fat, or fat into fat cells. If you have too little carbohydrate and you've taken too much insulin, which can happen whenever you administer an exogenous drug with an unpredictable time frame, or you maybe miss a meal, or you may be doing a little bit of too much exercise or too much physical activity and actually strain yourself, or your energy resources are utilizing in a fashion like that, whereby there's too much insulin in the blood for the carbohydrate there, you then have to eat more calories. And if you're mistiming your insulin dose and you're taking more calories in, then you're negating the fat burning zone, or if you like, that you're after. On the other side, you then got hyperglycemia. So if you're not taking enough insulin, you're not managing it appropriately, the cells cannot be fed. And what happens is, when the cells can't be fed, the body goes into a catabolic state, whereby it breaks down amino acids, muscle, and it also breaks down fat tissue. So you've got two factors there. You're breaking down the very thing that you're trying to build, and whilst you may be losing fat, it's extremely unhealthy. On the top of that, you then got insulin, which you need to manage carefully. If you don't, you'll take a hypo. If you take a hypo, then you're going to run into issues. So there's a lot of yo-yoing about, and you need to understand the key physiology of the body, basically, to be able to know when do I need to take insulin, why do I need to take it, how much do I need to take, and how do I need to fine tune it. And there are so many factors way beyond the scope of this podcast that we could go into that influence insulin sensitivity: muscle size, training duration, training type, training length, time zone, the amount of sleep that you've had, the amount of water that you've had, the medication that you could be taking alongside your diabetes, and the amount of perceived stress you have in your life. There are a lot of intricate factors that will affect that.
In your personal story, what were your biggest struggles with identifying factors that triggered your sort of fine-tuning, maybe in the earlier days, and maybe you can discuss now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that's going to relate to everybody on this podcast, if you've got type 1 diabetes, is we're told exercise is good for diabetes. Exercise is very good for type 2 diabetes, but when it comes to type 1 diabetes, exercise is very confusing. So strength training will actually put your blood glucose up. Do you know why that happens, Akash? It's because your liver is constantly releasing carbohydrate. It's releasing carbohydrate under fight or flight. And if we know strength training is a high intensity mode of exercise that relies on the glycolytic energy source, glycogen. So if we have a lot of carbohydrate that's being released from the liver into a system whereby we cannot manage it, what happens? We get high blood glucose. So you get a lot of diabetics that, start weight training and go, I'm doing this exercise, it's meant to bring my sugar down, but I'm getting higher. What's going on? Mm. So that then begins to get confusing. Then you have to, what we call, correct your blood glucose level. So without taking food, your blood glucose level is going up. And that's hard for people to comprehend. So you got to understand the role of your liver in exercise and stuff like that. On top of that, you then have cardiovascular exercise, which is low intensity exercise. So when you go out for a walk or a run, we tend not to have a fight or flight response. It tends to be a different kind of response. So if we don't have any of the fight or flight hormones circulating about, whose main role is catabolic, which is obviously breaking down glycogen and all that kind of stuff, and we don't have a high level of those in the blood, then the potential for blood glucose levels to go down is dramatically increased. So if we are doing that form of exercise, there's a more likely chance that we're going to go low, especially if we've overdosed.
Mm. So that's a difficult one for people to get their head around, I guess.
Yeah, like I said, you have to commit yourself to, understanding and learning the physiology of the body. I mean, we could get very complicated on this podcast, but I think honestly, guys, if you are type 1 diabetic or you know someone with type 1 diabetes, commit yourself to the study of learning how your body operates and testing and refining. Like when I was first diagnosed, I tested and I refined, I tracked data, I looked at my blood glucose before and after, I kept my diet consistent, my training consistent, and I modified from there whilst equipping myself with the knowledge.
And to this, so you've now been type 1 diabetic for nearly 20 years, is that right?
Well, I'm 31 now. I was diagnosed when I was 16. So yeah, a good while.
Yes. Do you still struggle with finding that balance, or?
No, I don't struggle with diabetes at all. It doesn't affect my life in any way, shape, or form because I understand exactly what's going on and how to respond.
Yeah. So if you're going through a stressful time in your life, your body's going to be a bit different with the insulin requirements.
Yeah, I know exactly what's going on, and that's come through practice and experience. So I'm very mindful. Whilst I do put myself under stressful situations at times and create work for myself, I'm mindful that I may need extra rest. And, I think it's a very important thing in the entrepreneurial world, or if you're running a business, is that, I treat running a business like training. So a lot of mental stress, a lot of long nights, a lot of, I have to have the appropriate tools, sleep, hydration, nutrition, walking, mindfulness to be able to perform. My biology has to be in a good place.
If there was one thing you had to do to lock in essentially your biology to handle being a high performer, what is it for you?
In all honesty, intermittent fasting has been a really beneficial tool for me. Waking up in the morning with a set blood glucose level, hydrating, black coffee, and long story short, not eating until around about 2 or 1 o'clock. I got up at 6 every day, and that's a long stretch, but it really allows me to get rock steady blood glucose levels. Normally what will happen is when you wake up in the morning, provided that you're in a good range, your blood glucose level will go high over the course of the day. The reason why that is because your liver is releasing glucose, and your blood glucose naturally climbs without the presence of insulin. So I would correct that throughout the day as I go. And then basically when I go to eat, one, I can eat larger calorific meals. 2, we tend to see a blunting in appetite over time. And 3, my blood sugars are normally a lot more steadier. Whereas starting the morning with a big carbohydrate-rich breakfast is massively going to spike up my blood glucose levels. It's going to require a lot more insulin. When you take a lot more insulin, especially if you're uncontrolled or uneducated, the chances of you going low are much higher because you just dumped a whole growth hormone into your blood. And it's sometimes very unpredictable in terms of like how much carbohydrate.
Yeah, interesting. And that leads me nicely on to talking about muscle building as a type 1 diabetic, because now it's you're trying to find that fine balance, but you've also got to get the calories in. How's that been a challenge for muscle? Obviously, you built a substantial amount of muscle mass.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a lot smaller than what I was years ago now. I'm like half the size, I think.
What was the heaviest you got to?
The highest I got up to, I'll send you a photograph. The highest I got up to was 21 and a half stone. I'm 5'11", and that was around about maybe 11%, 12%.
That's near 300 pounds, eh?
Yeah, I was a big lump.
Okay.
Did you ever see any of the photos from Flex or anything?
I've seen your bodybuilding shots from back in the day. So
yeah, there's some pretty meaty ones. I'll send you one for the cover of this. Yeah, I was a very heavily muscled 20-year-old.
Oh wow, 20 years old.
Yeah. So but I mean, diabetes was the very thing that I perceived was keeping me alive and keeping me accountable. So I was obsessed with it.
Were you training at 16 when you got diagnosed?
I started training around about 17. By the time I was diagnosed, I had a little bit of, I had no confidence to go to the gym. I remember going to this bodybuilding gym and like coming in and you saw these guys. I don't know if you can remember the first time you lifted weights. Yeah. The weights corner was like the sacred corner. You never went down there. You would get your head ripped off. So I remember I started on a recumbent bike and did 15 minutes and then like got off and did like a calf. Saw some guy like doing calf raises and went and tried to emulate it and then like walked out. You know what I mean? So I had to build that confidence over time and then start practicing, but that quickly escalated into full time. But I mean, muscle building, it's the same thing, making sure you're getting frequency of workouts in, making sure that you're tracking things like strength. I always said to people, look, in an ideal world, you want your body weight to be staying the same, if not creeping up very marginally, and you want strength to be the indicator of your muscle mass, right? It's very easy to pack on a lot of weight and increase strength at the same time, but a majority or proportion of that, large proportion of that weight is going to be bad weight, it's going to be bloat, it's going to be body fat. So in order to sort of look good and feel good the whole time that you're doing this, then keep it clean, keep it lean. I had to go through all the phases of bodybuilding, learning this the hard way. I'm sure you did yourself with bulking and like just completely unnecessarily shoveling calories down my throat with the mindset of this is nourishing the system. I'm going to grow here. I'm not really taking into respect the majority of it was going to body fat. So you have to go through those phases to learn that. When you take somebody who's completely brand new to muscle building and say, eat more calories, it's a very wide, barrier. And then again, everybody's comparing themselves to other people and they want results tomorrow. And it's just, so making sure that you've got a really good coach as well. You're getting in frequent workouts, you can recover from them. You're keeping your blood glucose levels in check. And you're tracking your workouts and progressively trying to do more. You back off every now and again when you feel a little bit tired or fatigued and you're not, it's one step back, two steps forward. You're not afraid to miss a workout if something happens. Discipline is important, but flexibility is even more important. Concepts like that.
So the role of type 1 diabetes is pretty much the same for fat loss and muscle building. It's all about fine tuning, and even if you've got a calorie surplus, there's not that danger of your insulin levels going out of control or.
Well, if you're in a calorie surplus, you're going to require more insulin. And if you're taking more insulin, then there's a chance that you're going to take a more hyperglycemia, which is going to spill into excess, even more excess. So, I think the big thing with diabetes is mismanaging your insulin dosage and eating too much as a result of mismanagement of that dosage.
How do you advise people to manage their mental balance during this journey of type 1 diabetes? Because I'm assuming there's a lot of probably unintended stress that comes about in all this management.
Yeah. Well, if you know me, you'll know that I talk about personal development more than anybody. Yeah. Right. So why do I do that? Well, when you're told from 16 years of age that you've got an autoimmune condition, you sort of have to really look after up here. So I have a huge responsibility every single day to look after my diabetes. Now, it's automatic now because I've been doing it for years. But if you go into the concept of somebody who hasn't taken ownership for it, doesn't know what's going on, wants to build a physique, trying to build a business, that's a huge burden, right? So I think the first thing for me was taking ownership of my life and going, right, what can I do about it? Well, I've got to strengthen in here. I've got to educate myself. I've got to be around the right support. And I've just got to take action. And it was just a matter of that. And I'm really careful about guarding my focus. I'm really careful about nourishing my mind. I read a lot of personal development. I journal a lot. I meditate. I reflect on my life continuously. I'm always looking at how I can do things better, what I learned about myself, and I'm always focused on me. If I focus on everybody else before I focus on me, then I forget about me, and as a result of that, then I'm just a people pleaser. And when I'm an overly altruistic people pleaser, I can never really look after myself. So I have to make sure that I am in a good place mentally first before I start my day. And, that's probably one of the most important things that I could share with anyone is like get really, really clear on looking after yourself. Get really, really clear on why you want to have things in life and what you want to have things, what kind of things you want to have in life. And if health is one of them, if family is one of them, if money is one of them, if, impact or, leading a community or leadership is one of them, get really, really clear as to the fact that you need to look after your biology, yourself, in order to make that happen. So it's a matter of connecting the dots, right? So, I'm very, I don't browse social media every day. I've got a 30-minute lock on my Instagram account. I have a team member that looks after my Instagram. I socialize with friends over WhatsApp or over, dinner. I'm not one of these like constantly browsing what other people are doing on social media. It's just of no relevance to me, right? And I don't want to get caught up in it. If I have a proper friendship with someone, it's, through the proper channels. Yeah, we'll message back and forth on Instagram, but I don't consume a lot of material every day and cloud my judgment.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the comparison syndrome and not knowing what you truly want is probably one of the biggest things holding everyone back in this day.
Yeah, massively. I mean, most people go on Instagram, look at somebody else's post that's usually an over-exaggerated, overinflated, fake, realistic, fake expression of what their life is really like. And they then compare themselves to that, minimize themselves, and then start judging themselves and realizing that they're not good enough. And then that spills over into more negativity around their relationships, around their home, around their self-image. And that builds every day. Because if you're not actually going, right, how is this inspiring me? What is this telling me? What I need to work on? Most people don't want to do the work. You go into a room and you ask how many people want to be wealthy, everybody will put up their hand. But how many people in the room are wealthy? The reality is everybody wants the instant gratification, the fantasy that's being sold to you by other people to make themselves appear more significant. When the reality is, if you're truly speaking to somebody who's a master at what they do, they don't need to brag and they don't need to complain either. They're centered and they're focused, and they can do either or, but there's a lesson in each.
If someone's listening to this thinking, that's me, I'm stuck in this rut, I'm stuck in this cycle of constant comparison, and now my self-worth is low, what can you tell them?
Well, the first thing I would tell them is, what are you comparing yourself to? Identify what that is. And if it's an individual that you're comparing yourself to, ask yourself straight away, right, is that an area of my life that I need to work on? The answer will probably be a yes. The next thing is to do, if you know that individual personally, is to go, what area am I strong in that individual is weak in? And then ask yourself, what would you trade places with that individual? 10 times out of 10, the answer will be no. Because when you compare, it's a subjective bias when you look at somebody else and you realize that it's only one over-exaggerated area. So normally it could be wealth, it could be a physique. We both know people that are very wealthy who are assholes, whose life's a mess. We both know people that have got an incredible looking physique, who are really unhealthy, who are skint, who are completely obsessed and have no family or no real, friends. So when you look at these variables, and you look at these areas, and you over-exaggerate one area and you feel that something is missing, then you feel disempowered and you let that person run you. So having control of your mind and your executive center in your head is of paramount importance. Otherwise, you're going to be distracted by illusions and you're going to be fooled. And the only person who's fooling you is yourself. So it's very important to realize that you need to stop, you need to zoom out, and you need to get perspective. Because when you realize that nothing is missing in your life and you're over-exaggerating somebody else's success and minimizing your own, you can't do anything. But when you actually look at what you have in your life and what you're grateful for and what you're strong for and what you need to work on, you realize you've just been inspired to go and do something. So you can either sit still or you can be inspired to take action. But again, get clear on why you want to do it. What matters to you? What do you need to have in place in order to be happy? Relationships, family, love, roof over your head, and food. That's it. All the money on top of that, or Rolexes or cars or whatever, is merely entertainment. So when you can detach yourself from the desire, which is an uncontrolled emotion, to be wealthy, then you're free. But if you're constantly chasing wealth purely to have a significant impact or impression upon other people that don't really care, you're then run by those people, and you've got no freedom, and you can't be liberated from that, and you're trapped in a little box in your head, which is a very depressing place to be, which is something that I see a lot of young aspiring fitness entrepreneurs go through, and the volatilities of up and down of comparing themselves, and they don't even know what the fuck they're comparing themselves to. So the reality is, when you master that and you train yourself and condition yourself to live inside your own head, look after your own mind, and get really clear on what you want and who you want in your life, and you understand what your baseline is, everything else on top of that is merely just an accessory.
Yeah. For me, journaling does exactly that on a daily basis. Aligning that focus, you keep asking yourself those exact questions, and soon you start reframing and rewiring your brain.
Yeah, 100%. And you need to be very proactive with that. So I have a very detailed journaling process that I do, but I've been doing, I've been looking after my mind for years, and I hit challenges, I hit ruts, I hit plateaus, I get bored, and I need to reinvent the wheel sometimes.
What's your current journaling strategy?
My current journaling strategy? Well, it's quite comprehensive. I've got a morning and an evening routine, but I think, there's a lot of questions I ask myself, but some of the most important things are, the first one in the morning would be, do you love yourself? And when I ask that, that's the most important question of your day. And when you ask yourself in the evening, do you love yourself more than you did this morning? And if you can answer that with a yes, then you're growing. Because if you're answering no to those things, if you can't love yourself, you can't do anything. When you're happy in your own skin and your own soul, then you can soar, right? You thrive. Whereas when you don't love yourself, you're then into survival. And when you're in survival, you're in fight or flight, and you're emotionally blinded. So I do everything in my power possible to stay as grounded and just as centered as possible. I get challenges, I get problems that arise that scare me, that frighten me. And again, it all boils back to that: do I feel loved? So, we can go into loads of different things here, but knowing that belief and having that belief is a very important thing for me. It's a very important thing for everyone, because that's what we're all chasing.
And Phil, if you write in your journal, no, what do you change in your day?
Well, if you do not love yourself, you got to ask yourself why. And it's either because you're criticizing yourself for something that you should have done and you can't see the benefit in the thing that you did do, or you're infatuated or obsessed with someone who isn't interested in you, whether it's a business relationship or a personal relationship, male, female, male, male, female, female, whatever it may be, then you're letting other people run the shots. And the comparison aspect and the self-judgment is usually based on you comparing yourself to somebody else and thinking somebody else has what you are missing.
Yeah, and so if you're saying no, you've got to dive into the why and then address the why and then act accordingly.
Well, you got to find the why and you got to think it.
Yeah.
Because if you've got something in your head that's, oh, I didn't do this or I didn't get that, then you're resentful.
You speak to a lot of fitness entrepreneurs, and I'm assuming there's going to be a lot listening to this particular episode. What illusion do you see more come across with these guys than anyone else?
That money's going to be your main source of happiness.
And what do you tell them?
Well, I tell them, first of all, why do you want to be wealthy? So I can buy this and buy that and buy this and buy that. We take people all the time into wealth, and they go and buy things. And then another problem happens. And then so until I get to this, you've got, all these PTs now trying to sell wealth, trying to sell this and that. And it's all emotional driven by people that have no grounding or real spiritual understanding of why they're on this planet. And you end up with a lot of people having high months, low months, high months, low months, and their emotions are all over the place, and they can never see the way out. And they never feel safe. And the number one thing that I would do is figure out what you need to be happy, survive, and thrive from a baseline number in terms of finances. So what do you need to put bread on your table? What do you need to look after your kids if you have any? What do you need to travel, buy nice things, your clothes? What do you need as a bare minimum to run your business? Get that figure clear. and then work out, okay, if I wanted to do something else, if I wanted to have something else, how much would I need? Whether it's in a year, 3 years, 5 years, where do I want to live? How much money do I need? Okay, what is the reverse engineered process to achieve that? And then figuring that out, but getting really, really clear as to what you need and why for the specific time point in your life, and then putting the processes in place to work there. And understanding that, I can't remember who said the quote, but an overnight success takes 20 years. We all live in this, it's super easy to be successful really quick. Whilst proper mentorship and stuff will give you speed, understand there's still a lot of work to be put in. A quick win is great, but it's like a bodybuilding show. You get in shape for a certain part of the year. What do you like for the rest of the year? What do you like for 10 years on average? And that's one of my mottos in life. You are what you do on average. Sustainability is the most important word in the dictionary. Is what you're doing sustainable? From a business perspective, you got to realize as well, when you start making more money, you also start to have more problems. Tax, you got to have a team. So getting really clear in your head, how much money am I making? Am I happy with this right now? And is it driving me forward? Am I impacting as many people as I could? If the answers to that are yes, float through with that until you get bored. Because if you've got your business mastered and you're making good, decent money, and you're not controlled by the desire to just simply earn more, to buy things to impress people you don't like, then you can then realign yourself and maybe look at other areas of your life that need work. Family relationships, personal relationships, your own spiritual quest, mental, and maybe learning up something new. So you got to be thinking along the lines of this.
What is your spiritual quest?
My spiritual quest is to know that I love myself and that everything that I do is inspiring to me, and that I'm on a mission to help serve and impact as many people as I can through my work. And, a big, big thing for me is I want every person that I connect with, every person that I teach or coach, to really have a profound impact on their life, to drive them in a direction that they want to go, or to give them the fuel or fire behind that. I'm very, very, very focused on that. And, when you come to some of my events or whatever, you ask people, and they'll say, Phil Graham has not just changed my business, he's changed my life. You look at any testimonial that I do or anything like that, over the years, the word life always comes into it. And that's one of my metrics. I want to, not just allow you to make more money as a fitness entrepreneur, but give you the resilience, the ability to literally be super grounded in who you are. That's a big, big thing for me. Massive.
Do you ever take time off the grid to further explore who you are?
Well, I get enough from my meditation and my journaling and just where I am right now. I assume you're talking about like Ashwagandha and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I wasn't assuming that. More like, do you ever go away for like weekends and just focus on?
Yeah, freedom and travel is a big, big thing for me. I haven't done ayahuasca. Yeah, I don't think I need it, to be honest. I'm in a very good place. So I think a lot of people look at these, again, shiny objects and go, right, I want to go there, I want to do this, I want to do that. Once I have that, I'll then know everything. It's a journey and a process. Where I am now is only a result of a process of all the chaos that I've been through in my own mind to allow me to find the right strategy for me.
Yeah. For anyone who wants to start meditation, start journaling, where would they start?
Well, I started with Headspace.
Yeah.
And then I've literally just taken that into my own time now, where I do it by myself, and I just get completely still. And I look at it like when you wake up in the morning, or sometimes at the end of the day, your head can be like a fizzy drink, and you're stilling it down. You're making it go like still water. So it's just getting centered. Thoughts have no bearing on your life unless you let them. They're only thoughts.
And journaling? And then you just go into your journaling after?
Journaling can be sort of the same. It's a little bit more manual than meditation. I alternate between journaling and meditation. Sometimes I'll journal in my head with the questions, or sometimes I'll write it down.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's like mental journaling or paper journaling. You can alternate between the two. I'm not one for, I must do this at this time. Because again, if I don't do it or something comes up that's slightly important, I don't want to have the guilt aspect of judging myself. You didn't do this. Yeah. So I've got tools and flexibility.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm always interested in people's journaling practices and how different they all are, but still serve the same purpose.
Yeah, well, I think the most, like I said, the most important question you can ask yourself every day, as corny as it sounds, is do I love myself? If not, why? What do I feel is missing? Why do I feel it's missing? What do I need to do to fulfill that? Is there any areas that I'm overlooking? Is there anything that I'm not taking into account? If I did have this, what are the disadvantages to having this thing that I'm missing? So it's about weighing up your perceptions and simply just distilling things.
Yeah. To finish off here, Phil, what's the number one tip you can give to anyone listening to start their transformation journey?
Do it for yourself and nobody else. It's as simple as that. Do not build a body to impress a woman. Do not build a body to impress another man. Do not build a powerful business to impress another man. Do not try to build wealth to rule somebody out and make yourself appear more significant. Do it for yourself.
Brilliant. How can people find out more about what you do and what you want?
Well, all the diabetic stuff, if you go to diabeticmuscleandfitness.com, loads of information there, tons of it. Videos, blogs, the whole lot. And then for anything fitness business related, phil-graham.com. Just find me on Instagram, pop me up. I have a podcast as well, Fitness Entrepreneur. It's all personal development, business stuff. So yeah, that's where you can find me, guys. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Akash.
No, thanks for coming on, Phil. Really good to have you.
My pleasure, brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.